Watching a movie can invoke a wide variety of emotions. This doesn't even have to be all positive, as there are many tear-jerking or hate-fueled scenes as there are uplifting and joyous. On another level entirely, however, there are scenes that are just pure cringe. Those that are so bad they are genuinely difficult to watch. So let's dive in. I'm Adam, this is What Culture, and here are 10 most cringeworthy moments in recent movies.
Hold up. Before we continue with the list, this video is sponsored by Dungeon Hunter 6, the latest in the Dungeon Hunter franchise. It's absolutely free to play. Download it now using the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen if you're viewing on PC. After several releases starting in 2009, we now welcome the highly anticipated addition to this renowned series. Dungeon Hunter 6 is a free-to-play mobile action role-playing game with a unique hero collector feature in a stunning fantasy style. The gameplay features a fast-paced hack-and-slash combat style with various builds and skills to utilize as you fight big bosses. In Dungeon Hunter 6, killing a boss is not the end. For every boss you want to defeat, the game has a unique mechanism by which you can not only loot, ride, and fly them, but also summon up to 3 of them onto the battlefield to become members of your squad, make them follow you anywhere, and perform combo skills. You can even shapeshift into them to harness the unique power when you reach the late game. But wait, that's not all. Get a special starter pack worth $50 using our link, which includes 10 summoning scrolls, 1 SSR Lieutenant Demonic Wolf, and 1 accessory pack. Use your game account to enter the launch Lucky Spin event for free to win great prizes like an iPhone 15 Pro Max, PS5, Apple Watch, and more starting October 15th. Check out the description for details. There we go. Download the game for free on iOS or Android, use our code in the description, or scan the QR code if you're viewing on a PC. Alright, and now back to the list.
Number 10. MJOLNIR'S Jealousy, Thor: Love and Thunder. Taika Waititi's follow-up to the exceptional Thor Ragnarok missed the mark tonally, and is one of the weakest outings in the MCU to date. From Jane Foster's catchphrase and the screaming goats, to Korg's painful voiceovers, Thor's new fighting style alongside the Guardians of the Galaxy, and literally anything Russell Crowe said as Zeus, there was no shortage of scenes that could have claimed a spot on this particular list. None of the above was the worst, however. Whereas its predecessor Ragnarok was laugh-out-loud funny, Thor: Love and Thunder was full of moments that were clearly written to be funny, but went down like a lead balloon. The absolute worst example of this was Mjolnir being jealous of Thor's relationship with Stormbreaker. Even Chris Hemsworth has spoken about how the movie went too silly, saying as much in an interview with GQ, and Mjolnir's jealousy exemplifies this concern. Did anyone really need to know that Thor's weapon had a feud? Number 9. Nolan North's cameo, Uncharted. One of the best things about HBO's The Last of Us was how it approached giving cameos to the cast of the original Naughty Dog games. Troy Baker, Jeffrey Pierce, Merle Dandridge, and Ashley Johnson all appeared, but there was nothing gratuitous about it at all. Every single one of them enhanced the show. The same cannot be said about Sony's adaptation of another PlayStation powerhouse, Uncharted. Nolan North, who voiced Nathan Drake in the series, is a voice acting legend, and was rightfully given some screen time during the movie. Surely though, something better could have been written for him. As Nate and Chloe walk up the beach after crash landing in the sea, from a sun lounger, North said something similar happened to him previously. There will be a lot of people who didn't know who this was, and without the context of the cameo itself, the scene made absolutely no sense. Even with the knowledge of who this was, it's a poor excuse for a cameo. It's up there with Agent 47 walking past 2 people playing as him on the PlayStation in 2007's Hitman adaptation. This scene screamed of desperation to get North on screen for the sake of it, rather than giving the voice actor a real part to play. Number 8. The Death of Mr. BLUT, Polar. Released in 2019, Netflix's Polar is a bizarre movie that suffers from trying to balance 2 completely incompatible, ironically polar opposite tones. There is the dark noir side of things, led by a typically strong Mads Mikkelsen performance that unsurprisingly is the best part of the entire thing, against the eccentricity of Matt Lucas's villain. The story tells of Duncan, an aging hitman who finds himself at odds with his former boss, Mr. BLUT. Mikkelsen's quiet and broody scenes could have actually made for a strong movie themselves if not for the other side of Polar. In Mr. BLUT, Matt Lucas plays a horrendously eccentric villain as out of place next to Mikkelsen as any antagonist you are likely to find. Every scene, without hyperbole, is as cringeworthy as the last in a wildly over-the-top and hard-to-watch performance, but Mr. BLUT's death scene is arguably the worst of the lot. When the two characters finally come together, BLUT's security team runs off, causing the villain to call them in what could be the worst line delivery in the movie. Then a very fake looking head of the villain, eyes open and mouth agape, is thrown out of the window. Thankfully this scene brought an end to the woeful character, but in a very suitably cringeworthy way. Number 7. The fight outside the grocery store, The Irishman. Digital de-aging is something that Hollywood is utilizing more and more these days. In this regard, the industry has come a long way since the very plastic-looking Charles Xavier in X-Men: The Last Stand, but still, the effects are far from perfect. Even in Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, a movie in which the de-aging effects on the likes of Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci and Al Pacino were generally strong, there were moments that fell below the bar of what was expected. In particular, when Robert De Niro goes to the grocery store to beat up the man who shoved his daughter. At the time, De Niro was pushing 80 years old, though of course the movie made him look much younger. This wasn't an issue until he was tasked with something of an action scene, where he had to beat someone up. It was here that the veil of the effects dropped somewhat. CGI can make an actor's face look a lot younger than it is, but it couldn't inject any youth into the way De Niro moved and kicked the poor man on the sidewalk. These were clearly the movements of a man considerably older than the character, and in all honesty, it was awkward to watch. Number 6. Hubie's inhaler, Hubie Halloween. Adam Sandler's career has seen something of a shot in the arm in recent years, with the actor's performances and the likes of Uncut Gems and Hustle showing the world a completely different side to his range. That hasn't stopped him from making the likes of Hubie Halloween, however, with a performance in 2020 reminiscent of a time in Sandler's career best left in the past. The actor went back to silly and painfully unfunny as the character, with his usual cast of friends along for the ride. During one scene, Kevin James's Sergeant Downey calls Hubie into the station to give him a special assignment. Though it's just a ruse to get him to stop bothering the police, the idea of going undercover excites Hubie so much he takes a deep breath from his inhaler. He then proceeds to interrupt Downey by exhaling no fewer than 10 times. It wasn't funny the first time, and it was just sad by the 10th. Number 5. Antoine's entire character, Free Guy. Following on from Thor Ragnarok, Taika Waititi became one of the most popular names in Hollywood, though it feels as though the star may not be rising quite so much since Ragnarok's follow-up Love and Thunder. In that sweet spot between those two movies, Waititi played the villainous Antoine Hoverchelik in Ryan Reynolds' Free Guys. While the character was supposed to be an obnoxious guy, and there wasn't meant to be anything likable about him, it's fair to say that Waititi turned both of these dials way past 10. Instead of just being someone for the audience to root against, Waititi's character actively detracts from the movie itself. At no point is he ever believable as an actual real person. His mannerisms, every bit of dialogue, every interaction with another human, and every conversation are all supposed to be comic relief, but they miss the mark by a wide margin. Similar to the majority of Love and Thunder, this may have worked had Waititi scaled it back somewhat, but instead the tone is just too over the top to enjoy. Number 4. The Strip Search, Gemini Man. In Gemini Man, Will Smith was brought face to face with a younger version of himself, earning a fair amount of publicity in the build-up to its release thanks to the dual role and de-aging technology used to allow it. The movie divided audiences and critics, with its 26% tomato meter score being offset by a huge 83% audience score. However, though there may have been big disagreements surrounding Ang Lee's 2019 outing, there is one aspect that feels more agreeable, namely the strip search scene. As Mary Elizabeth Winstead's Danny is sent to speak to Junior, the younger Will Smith makes her strip to her underwear so she can be searched for a wire. You don't have to have too much knowledge or experience of such a thing to know that this could have been achieved quite easily with the character's clothes staying on. Similar in a way to the infamous Alice Eve underwear shot from Star Trek Into Darkness, this moment in Gemini Man felt weirdly and abruptly gratuitous. Number 3. Flounder's design, The Little Mermaid. Even the very best remakes of the Disney classics have failed miserably to recapture the magic that made them so popular in the first place, and it feels like with each new release the studio gets further and further away from achieving such a feat. The latest Disney retelling, 2023's The Little Mermaid, saw Ariel return to cinema screens alongside all of her underwater friends, and behind The Jungle Book and The Lion King, this took more CGI than most. The results were not good. The obsession with adapting these beloved animated stories into live action, or at least more realistic special effects, robs them of any kind of magic, any personality, and any fun. The Little Mermaid's supporting cast suffered greatly from this, but arguably none more so than Flounder. Originally a smiley, bouncy, happy addition to the movie, Flounder all of a sudden became nothing more than a generic fish. Yes, the technology to bring to life such a realistic looking creature is impressive in a way, but that's completely beside the point. Flounder's new design lacked any heart and was incapable of emoting the way his animated counterpart could. It was actually hilarious how badly the movie missed the mark on its character designs, which was just one of the negative factors impacting the movie. Number 2. MILO'S dancing, Morbius. The last few years have not been good ones for the comic book movie genre. The market has become more and more ridiculously saturated, interest has faded after Avengers Endgame, and unfortunately it does feel as though the quality has noticeably dipped. One of the most notorious movies in recent times has been Morbius, widely regarded as one of the worst comic book movies ever made, and a laughingstock on the internet. There isn't much to enjoy about the movie, and although usually brilliant, even Matt Smith isn't safe from ridicule. Smith plays Milo in the movie, who is meant to be the antithesis of Morbius in that he revels in his vampiric gifts. This sparks an inevitable turn to the dark side, but what was less inevitable, yet was still included in the movie, was the horrendous dancing scene. Obviously full of life and vigor after so many years of struggling physically, Milo decides to let loose and dance. Number 1. The final scene, The Flash. Like Thor: Love and Thunder, The Flash is another comic book movie from which you could take your pick of cringeworthy moments. Some, however, in particular the unwarranted posthumous cameos, went past this and into the territory of offensive. Sticking to pure cringe, Barry's confession at the whim of the lasso of truth, where he reveals he knows sex exists but hasn't experienced it, is bested by the final scene of the movie. This was supposed to be the chapter of the DCEU that changed everything, answered all questions, and set the entire scene for the future of the DCU being headed up by James Gunn. The ending of The Flash could have and should have been something truly exciting, and yet the last shot did nothing but ensure the film ended with a whimper. Barry Allen being stuck in the Schumacher-verse with George Clooney's Bruce Wayne likely wasn't the ending anyone expected, and it left more questions than answers. Unfortunately, The Flash had one more trick up its sleeve to make this ending even more groan-inducing. Throughout the movie, Barry had glued a tooth back into his mouth after having it fall out, and the big final shot and reaction to him seeing this new Bruce Wayne was nothing more than the tooth falling back out, with the kind of CGI that would have been considered bad the last time Clooney donned the Batsuit in 1997. This film should have ushered in a new era of the franchise, and this is how they chose to end it? And there we have it, folks, our list of cringeworthy moments in recent movies. But please do let us know down in the comments of your most hated cringeworthy moments, and while you're there, make sure you give us a like and a cheeky subscribe. If you want to follow me on socials, I am at Strawn87 on all socials. You can come and say hello to me on there. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, the rest of your month. And until next time, take care.